Welcome to Listen with Equity. Hi everyone, I'm Liz Daniels, and today we have international Italian event rider Dan Bizzarro on the show. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. It's through Lou that she actually has been stalking you for a little while, Dan, and got in touch. So yeah, thank you to her for the connection. And once I'd heard about you, Dan, I read with interest on your website a lot about you and your background and your journey over to the UK. But maybe you'd like to tell your story if that's okay, Dan.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So I'm Daniel. Dan, everyone calls me Dan Bizzarro. I'm Italian. I come from Italy. It's a city in the northwest of from Turin, which is a city in the northwest of Italy. And yeah, I've been riding since I was about 9. My mum has always been passionate about horses, and I started going, with her on a Saturday morning, and then it just sort of progressed from there. I started riding a bit more properly and regularly when I was 12, 13, and then we fast forward to the junior years. I was very lucky. I had the Italian Federation gave me a horse that the Federation used to buy horses every 4 or 5 years for the main Olympic riders, and it was a very, very good system because the 6 or 7 top Italian riders were kind of sponsored by the Federation. So the Federation every 4 or 5 years used to go to New Zealand and buy 10 horses for each rider. And those riders were producing young horses, and those horses were produced. And then it was the reason why the system would work really well is because, of course, some of those horses were only good enough up to junior level. So those horses were given to junior riders, and then other horses were good to up to 3-star, which is the young rider level. And so the Federation would just give the horses to young riders. And then, of course, you're left with 2, 3 horses that were actually good enough for the top, and which meant that riders at every level always had good horses. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen anymore. But I was kind of I got I got lucky because I was at the back end of the system, and that was the first horse I did some junior championship with. I got to 3-star level, and then I sort of moved on. So I then found a couple of very good owners and produced different horses for them. Did my first 4-star when I was 23, 24. But then Italy it's a tricky country to, if you want to make it as an event rider, which is what I wanted to do. It's really hard. So unless you've got yourself the backing, the sport is not as well known, and there aren't enough owners and sponsors. And so I just started to look around and applied to a job that William Fox Pitt was offering as a stable rider. I got the job and I moved to England in 2011. It was yeah, myself, my ex-girlfriend, a horse, a cat, and a dog. And yeah, we moved in January, and yeah, I've been based in the UK ever since. I worked for William for a season, and then I based myself in Hampshire first. Then I started running a yard in Lechlade in Oxfordshire, and then Lynham Heath, a very nice yard with great facilities, not far from where I'm now. And then now, a couple of years ago, I've changed my business. I decided to not run a yard anymore, focus on a smaller team of horses, and do a lot more coaching and clinics. And then I've got another couple of projects on the side that, if you want, we can talk a little bit about. But it's all to do with coaching and helping people to improve their riding.
I think that was the bit that we really aligned with, Dan, is your passion to share the information and to share the things that you've learned. And do you think that that has stemmed in part from being given those opportunities as a young rider to have those horses, which has allowed you to work hard at your sport, but given maybe a little bit of a leg up? Do you feel like then it's important to invest something back into the sport?
Yeah, definitely. Part of it, I think, is that I recognize that I have been lucky in different stages of my career, but I think a big part of it is I never had a lot of money to spend. You know, my parents, they're not poor, but they're not wealthy. And so I really had to work hard for everything I got. And you know, when I was 25, I had to leave everything behind and move to the UK. My English was okay, but you know, it wasn't great. Um, and I think that because of my experience, I really appreciate how many people are out there working to work hard and wanting to learn and desperate to improve, but that struggle to have the right opportunities because they maybe can't afford to spend the money, or maybe because they're based in places where, you know, they can't access good coaching and good training. And you know, they might buy more difficult horses because that's all they can achieve. And as I said, they really put the time and effort in, but they struggle to find improvements. I want to try to find a way to help as many people as possible. I'm very busy with my coaching. I appreciate that having private lessons with a good coach is expensive, and I am just trying to find lots of different ways to help as much as I can. You came across me through social media. That's one of the channels I use. But for example, I'm developing an app for it's already on the Apple Store. It will be soon on the Android store as well, where clients are able to access audio lessons. And it's a bit of a. I know that a couple of companies have had the same idea, and they're trying to do that. I haven't found any good, clear method with useful lessons. It's been really fun testing the audio lessons, in particular with people that, when they heard about the idea, come to me and say, how can you possibly teach me if you're not there? And all I said to them is, I completely understand. And that was the first question I had. So let me send you one lesson, try it, and let me know what you think. And it's been amazing to hear the feedback, because people just can't believe how well it can work. It's difficult, and it took me a lot of work, but actually it can work really well.
That's so good. I love it when people think outside the box and are able to, you know, take these ideas forwards and really make them something, you know, quite valuable as well. And alongside that, you've got a podcast as well, Dan. So you're reaching people through all these different channels as well. It's Your Equestrian Life. How's that been? Were you nervous when you set that up, or was it a natural step?
No, it wasn't. The reason why I started is because I love listening to podcasts. And the main thing I really appreciate about this new technology is the fact that I can now listen to conversations between really interesting people that I will never meet, because, you know, they're just so far away from my you know, group of friends or people I know. I listen to lots of podcasts about technology and finance, and there are incredible people. And before podcasts were out, you would never be able to listen to a 5 hours conversation between Elon Musk and someone else. You know, you might read a book that he wrote, or you might listen to a quick interview, but you would never actually be able to sit down and be a fly on the wall. And I'm very lucky that I got access, and I know lots of very interesting, very successful people in the equestrian world. And I'm very lucky that I can just pick up the phone and have a conversation with them, but most people wouldn't be able to. And so I just thought, okay, but why don't I record the conversation I have with them, so that if people are interested in it, they can just listen, and then they can contact me and ask for questions. And maybe next time I speak to that person, we can talk about whatever the listener wanted to talk about. So yeah, it's been. I'm very lucky. I tend to give things a go, and I'm not afraid to fail. I didn't start it thinking, oh, I really hope that lots of people will listen. I don't really care too much, you know. As far as I help a few people, that's great, and then if I can help more, that's even better.
And when you moved, and just to go back a step, sorry, Dan, you know, at 25, I'm sure you were a little bit like a rabbit in the headlights with the dog and the cat. What was the most valuable thing that you learned in that first season with William and of course Jackie Potts, who is just an incredible horsewoman in her own right? What things did you take away from that that then gave you extra confidence to continue down your own journey?
So I think it was mainly I learned a lot about the management of a yard and management of the horses. So one of the things that people don't appreciate about riders like William, for example, is that when I was with him, I think he was competing 22 horses. So he was riding between 10 and 12 horses a day, from 9 a.m. until whenever he would finish. But you would have been surprised by how well he knew each one of the horses. He would spend hardly any time in the yard, but he'd be able to walk in the yard, stop, look at a horse that was standing at the cross tie that was being tucked up, and think that horse is not standing like he normally stands. And you're like, what do you mean? Well, he's resting that leg. He normally doesn't. And then it turns out that there's something kind of, the horse is a bit sore, or is a bit crooked. And you're like, how the hell do you know that? You spend all your time on horses in theory. But the knowledge of and the understanding that people like William, like Jackie have of the horses is just unbelievable. And that's a big part of my method. I really try to teach to horses and riders how to communicate with each other, because I feel that way too many coaches, way too many riders, way too many people that ride, they think that when you sit on a horse, you just tell the horse what to do. And if they don't, you get grumpy. And if they stop at a fence, you beat them up because they're just being naughty. And actually, I can tell you that in my experience, 100% of the difficult horses, quirky horses, tricky horses I've rode in my life had something physically not right. 100% of them. And I was the first one when I was young to get frustrated. And I was the first one to think that the horse was just being lazy. And then the experience actually taught me that horses generally really want to try hard for you. And if they don't, there is a reason for it. And the reason is either you're not doing the right, you're not doing your job and you're interfering with them, or there's just something that they're not comfortable with or they don't understand. And I think being able to put yourself in the horse's perspective and understand, why is my horse stopping? There must be a reason for it. They can't just a horse that used to love jumping doesn't just stop because it's naughty. There is a reason for it. So let's listen to what the horse is trying to tell us. And I think so many times we say, oh, if only the horses could talk, it'd be so much easier. Well, they do talk. They just talk in a different way, don't they? And so it's up to us to learn to understand them, because they are shouting at us at time, not only talking. They're like, guys, I'm really uncomfortable. That's why I'm napping. That's why I'm rearing up. That's why I'm backing. That's why I'm stopping. And we just think, oh, you're just being lazy. Get on with it. We wouldn't do that to a friend. We wouldn't have that attitude. We would be a lot more understanding, and we would listen. We wouldn't just talk at our friend. We would ask, okay, what's wrong? Just let me understand. We don't tend to do that enough with horses. That's my opinion.
I love that. It's like I always say, when you're coaching, it's a three-way conversation between like the coach, the rider, and the horse. And it's, for everybody to have that conversation. And, when I coach, I think focus more on the horse's body language and what the horse is telling me than the rider, because the body language can say one thing, what comes out of their mouth and what they want to believe is something completely different, and then the horse tells you the truth like in the picture. I find that so refreshing, that to hear that, how much you take that and how important that is, that you are looking at that bigger picture and thinking, well, hang on a minute, that horse has never had a stop, or that horse never used to nap, or that horse is now dropping the feed but never used to drop that, whatever that is. It's the smaller things that make a bigger picture, and quite often you don't want to believe that something might not be wrong. It might be wrong with your horse, might not be okay, and it's easier to give them a kick and get on with it. But yeah, I think that's a really refreshing viewpoint. Thank you for sharing that.
And I think I don't want to ride horses feeling that they don't want to do something and I make them do that. Like I just rather never ride again. It's just not fun. Imagine working in an office, working with people that all they want to do is nap and avoid doing their job, and you having to spend the whole time whipping them to make them do stuff. You wouldn't want to work there. So, and it's the same with horses, isn't it? And that's what I do lots of time. I try to find ways to explain things that people understand. Lots of time when it comes to horses, people think in a slightly different way. So when you were looking at, sorry, what you were saying, when you coach, you tend to look at the horse's body language when you start from the horse. It's really interesting you say that, because I feel I have a very different approach compared to other coaches when it comes to improving the rider as well. So lots of people come to me and they say, I've got a really bad lower leg position, and that's why I don't wear spurs. So I start from saying, why do you think you got a bad lower leg position? Oh, because I kick every stride. Why do you do that? Oh, because my horse is really lazy. That's exactly it. So lots of people would start saying to the rider, oh, you need to keep your lower leg steady and your heels down. I look at that rider and I'm like, that rider cannot do it because the horse is very much behind the leg. And so I need to start to work on doing very simple exercises that quickly will make the horse a little bit sharper to the leg. And then all of a sudden, that rider is allowed to relax the leg. The same when people, I'm really strong in the hand. But why do you do it? There must be a reason. You didn't start riding, pulling the hell out of your horse's mouth. Oh, my horse runs into the fence. Exactly. That's the reason. So let's try to do some really quick and simple exercises to improve that. When your horse stops pulling and running into a fence, you will stop being strong with your hands. And so I really do think it's important to ask, why have I got this bad habit? Because that bad habit comes from somewhere. And if I can take away the reason why I do have that bad habit goes away without me even having to think about it. It's just a little bit of a different approach.
I like that, and I like conversations about this. And I think as a industry, we've learned a lot recently, but my goodness me, we've got a hell of a lot more to keep learning. And we've got a lot of science now that backs things up, but it's the true horsemen that have got so much to give as well. Without the science, the intuition, as you said with William, just looking at the horse, that horse doesn't normally rest that leg. Why are they resting that leg? What am I feeling? What am I seeing? And I think that is a dying trade almost. As we get more and more science-based, people rely less on intuition or less on learning these amazing skills that these incredible horse people have got to share if you listen.
I think that one of the main reasons for this, for what you said, is that young riders don't spend any time with experienced riders anymore. The progression used to be, you're a young rider, you go and be a working pupil for an experienced rider, you work for free, you spend hours just looking at how they do things and learning and absorbing and asking questions, and then little by little you get that experience. You ride lots of different type of horses. You find yourself in the middle of a field not really being able to sort the problem out, and you start to think, okay, right, okay, I tried XYZ, didn't work. What else can I try? Oh, I saw William doing that exercise that day. Let me try. And he explained to me why he was doing it. Let me try. Oh, there you go. It works. So next time you find yourself in 3 years' time having the same problem, you got the answer. But nowadays, people, they just do a lot of the work either on their own. There is a lot of DIY, in particular in this country. I've seen, there is a big difference with, for example, the rest of Europe and the UK. Or they will have the lesson once a week, and then the rest of the week they either don't really practice what they should practice, or they do, but they just spend too much time on their own, and not enough time learning from experienced riders and knowledgeable people.
Yeah, we have that conversation a lot within the equine community, like what is your focus when you get on the horse? What are you going to, have you got some exercises in the bag that you can do to improve a problem? What are you going to work on in between the lessons? And, how is that going to help? How can you take that out hacking? How can the hacking, help you to, and it's much part of a bigger picture. And as a coach, straight away when someone comes back into your arena, whether they have worked in between the sessions or not. And as a coach, dare I say that sometimes life gets in the way and someone's had a problem that, maybe work has taken them away for 2 weeks and it's really genuinely not their fault. But for the most part, I think when you see someone working hard, it really drives you to dig so deep for them, to help them, because you see. And I really like something that I read on your website, that for you it doesn't matter if someone wants to come and train doing flat work at home, whether they're jumping 80 centimeters or whether they're a professional rider, your enthusiasm remains the same for them. I think that's so important, to make the people that are progressing feel that they are as valued as those that are at the top, and at the top of the game.
As far as a rider wants to learn and improve, I'm happy to help them. It doesn't matter whether they will never want to compete, or whether they've got a really exciting and fun plan ahead of them with big competitions. It doesn't make any difference, because it doesn't matter what level you are. If you want to improve, you're going to put the effort, and that's all I want. But I feel that way too many riders finish a lesson and never ask themselves, what have I learned today? And I think that's a problem, both when they're having a lesson with a good coach, but it's even a bigger problem when they're having a lesson with a coach who's not that good, because there's lots of people that have had weekly lessons for the past 5 years, and they're exactly in the same place they were 5 years ago. But because they don't know any better, for them that's normal, and for them that's okay. But at the same time, if you have a lesson with a good coach and you don't finish the lesson and you think, okay, what are 2 or 3 things I learned today? What is this exercise we've done? Because right now, I've just finished the session, so I feel that everything is very clear in my head. But unless I write it down, or I do it again tomorrow, or do it again in a couple of days, I'm going to forget it.
Yeah.
And that happened to me so many times.
Yeah.
I have a lesson and everything goes well, and I feel like I've really got what we worked on, and I asked my questions and I got the answers, and I got the right feeling from the horse. And then I'm working on the same thing 3 days later, and I'm like, why can't I reproduce what And that's where I started developing, in my method when I coach, a few very simple but very effective exercises that I teach to everyone I work with straight away. And then I try to create a bit of a warm-up routine. Because I think if you don't set the tone at the beginning of the session, you're then going to struggle to achieve what you want to achieve. If your horse is behind the leg, if your horse is strong, if your horse is not focused, if your horse is spooking, you're going to spend most of the session dealing with those things. And then you get to the end where you feel that maybe your horse is going a little bit better, and then you're like, oh, good boy, well done, and you put him away. So I'm like, so you practice for 50 minutes or however long, the bad things, and as soon as you got to the good things, you just live it. So you never actually get to practice the good things. It should be the opposite. You should practice a lot more when the horse is working correctly, when the horse is focused, when the horse is in front of the leg. But it's yeah, I just feel that coaches should really try to help people to have a few really good tools, really good exercises that they can trust and use every day to quickly get to a point where they can crack on with a session and work on what they need to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say you don't want to spend 50 minutes getting the horse on the bit every time you ride to then, progress. But one of the things that I quite often share with my guys is make a note on your phone. Everyone has smartphone, or most people have smartphones now. So, at the end of your lesson, sort your horse out, sort yourself out, just sit down, because as you say, Dan, it's fresh in your head, and just make a couple of bullet points of, which exercises work for you, how did that make you feel, and the wrap up at the end of the session about what you might need to work on. Because you're absolutely right, they might have the day off the next day, and then you go hacking the day after, and then you're back in the arena and you're like, what was it that we did, how did we achieve that? So at least you've got that cue, haven't you, to try and as you say, recreate. But that's the sign of a good coach, isn't it, being able to recreate what you had in your lesson away. Because I always say to my guys, like, if you jump in or you round a cross country course or in a dressage test, you haven't got a coach sitting on your shoulder, reminding you of the key bits. You have to be able to problem solve in the moment, to get the results.
And my goal is always, which is very silly from a sort of business point of view, is always to feel that my clients need me less and less and less. I want to actually teach them something. I don't want to tell them what to do when they're with me and then they go away and they don't know how to do it, because it's my fault. It's not their fault. It means that I haven't taught them anything. And if they haven't learned, okay, there are the few people that, they don't actually care about learning, but those pretty soon, they won't come back to my lessons because they realize that I'm not there to have a chat. I'm there to actually achieve something. But I lost the.
Talking about the
structure,
yeah, structure, and about being able to recreate it, and
exactly
not being needed, eventually.
Exactly. I want them to repeat the same exercises the day after, and feel that the horse goes as well as he went in lesson. Because as you said, when they go to a competition and when they're competing, I'm not going to be there. And so if I need to tell them that thing needs to be done at that point, it's not going to happen, and the competition is not going to go well. Whilst if they understand and they get to understand and feel the right things, then instinctively they will react the right way.
No, absolutely. Dan, I would love, if it's okay, to ask you some quick fire questions. So quick fire, first thing that comes into your head, short,
Sure.
Concise, to the point. Let's hammer these questions, if you don't mind. So number
No
one.
problem.
What is the one equestrian item you can't live without?
My neck strap.
Well, yeah, I like that. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
That repetition of simple exercises will always beat fancy, difficult things. You'll always achieve a lot more repeating very simple exercises until it's good enough.
Oh. Who has been your biggest inspiration?
That's a tricky one. I don't have one particular person. I've always been someone that tries to take good bits from situations, people, and I feel that everybody in every situation has something to give, even if it's a bad situation or if it's even a bad lesson can teach you something.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Take risks, just go for it. You'll be fine. As far as you don't do anything dangerous, just give it a go. You can always just say, well, I tried. I don't want to regret things that I haven't done.
These are really good answers, Dan. We've got one more for you. Who would you have around your dinner table and why? They could be still with us or they might have already passed away, but who would you have around your dinner table and why?
Winston Churchill, I think,
Oh.
because he was someone who really did what I would say to do to my younger self. He was someone that did the most different things and experiences and did them well and did them in a successful way. And I think he was genuinely someone that, of course, he was absolutely brilliant, but he gave things a go. And some of them worked, some of them didn't work. But that, people tend to not even know about the things that he did and did succeed at. And that's the whole point of give it a go, because people won't remember the things you messed up. They will remember the things that you've done successfully. But lots of the things he did successfully, they were successful because of all the mistakes he made in other projects. And I think that's a big lesson to learn. So
Yeah,
I'd love it to ask lots of questions and him mentoring me. Yeah.
that would be really cool, actually. I think it's the first person that's ever chose Winston Churchill. So yeah, well done. I think that's a good thinking outside the box. And
Good.
where can people find out more about you and about the app as well that you spoke about and the podcast? And where are you, Dan?
So I've got my kind of eventing website is www.dbeventing.co.uk. There you can find my contact, my phone number if you want to contact me for lessons or clinics. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Dan Bizzarro. And the app is called Dan Bizzarro Method. There is a website as well where you can find information about it and download it. And yeah, that's just the first step of a bigger project. The app will develop this winter. During the season is always really tricky. I've been traveling a lot, preparing. Well, I was in the shortlist for the Olympics. Unfortunately, I didn't make it, but it's been very busy to prepare towards Paris. So I'm even my podcast is called Our Equestrian Life. You'll find it everywhere on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, and same with the podcast. I've been a little bit slow at getting episodes out, but I will. I promise.
Best excuse ever, though, isn't it? Sorry, I was preparing for Paris. I think
it kind of works. It kind of works. Good, excellent. But the problem is that I didn't make it, so yeah. It's
not a problem. It's a great honor to be, to be considered and to be shortlisted is incredible. And hopefully another 4 years of we'll see a different outcome and hopefully see you there and maybe with a podium place as well. That would be even better. We'll be like, do you remember that time we spoke to Dan and now he's on the podium?
I know, it would be cool. For now, I'm part of the Italian team in the final of the Nations Cup in Boccolo in a few weeks' time in Holland. So we're working towards that. And that's exciting. Italy's in third place in the Nations Cup so far. So hopefully we can finish on the podium. We were second 2 years ago and that was really exciting. So hopefully we can better that.
Amazing. Well, very, very best of luck. And thank you so much for joining us. We will put all the links so you can get hold of Dan in the show notes. And don't forget that you can join Equiteam by visiting equiteam.co.uk. Dan, a massive thank you and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye, everyone.